So I hope that you had a wonderful week. I hope that your practice is going really well, that your peace of mind is becoming more present to you, and that your heart is growing more happy and wide. So let's begin by settling ourselves, just setting a very positive intention for our practice together. Very fresh, very vibrant and pure, very dynamic intention to attain our highest state of happiness in our practice for our own benefit and the benefit of all mother sentient beings. I'll say the refuge vow in Tibetan, and then if you're a Buddhist, also say your refuge vow, please. And it's important to say it 3 times in the morning, 3 times in the evening, as some of you do, and just continue like that. It's very good. Sangye chodan soki chognam la jangchu bardu dagni kepsu chi dagi jinso ki pe sonam ki drola penchir sangye drupar shok. Sangye chodan soki chognam la jangchu bardu dagni kepsu chi dagi jinso ki pe sonam ki drola penchir sangye drupar shok. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I always go for refuge, from merit, from giving, and the rest, in order to aid all. May I attain Buddhahood. Samchen tamche de wadang de wei yudan dam part gyur chi dunel dang dunel chi yudan draward gyur chi dunel me pe de wadang pa dan min draward gyur chi nering chadang ni dang drawe dang yom champalane part gyur chi samchen tamche de wadang de wei yudan dam part gyur chi dunel dang dunel chi yudan draward gyur chi Dunel me pe de wa dan pa dan min dra war gyur chi. Ne ring cha dang ni dang dra we tang yom champalane part gyur chi. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes and be established in immeasurable loving kindness. May all sentient beings be free from the ocean of suffering and its causes and be established in immeasurable compassion. May all sentient beings never be separated from the root of sorrowless bliss and be established in immeasurable joy. May all sentient beings be totally freed of attachment, strong desire, as well as hatred and aversion, and indifference, and instead live with immeasurable equanimity. So let's again call to mind these 4 immeasurable qualities, these really beautiful, beautiful traits that we can develop without limits. This is why they're called immeasurable. There's no limit to the kind of loving kindness we can develop and cultivate. There's no limit to compassion. It's immeasurable. It holds that deep wish for all living beings, but especially for human beings, because human beings right now on this planet are the ones creating the most suffering for themselves and for many other life forms. Let's generate the immeasurable wish to have compassion bless our mind stream until all beings are totally like us, wanting to be free from suffering. May we all be free from suffering. And let's cultivate this immeasurable wish for joy, imagining this state of mind for ourselves and for this planet. Imagine the kind of planet we could have if all beings were completely free from suffering, if even the word and the concept of suffering would never be known. This is possible, but we have to imagine it. We have to believe deeply from our heart of hearts that this is possible. First, we have to do this cultivation, this practice in our own practice, our own heart and mind, to be able to experience it, because experiential knowing is so vital, to our practice on the path, especially in Buddhism. But whatever you're practicing, you have to know that. If you're learning some kind of instrument, once you learn a few notes, maybe the guitar, you learn some notes, you start to feel inspired. Oh, I learned some notes. Then you learn one chord. Oh, now I put the notes together. I learned a chord. Then you start to put another chord in there. Now you're starting to learn how to really play. Of course, that's fantastic. Has to build little by little by little. Our practice is the same way. We've got to just, why do we want to do this practice? Because it's good for us. It brings us these qualities. We feel loving kindness. We feel compassion. We feel joyful when we sit in our meditation and when we meet together on these Mondays and when we meet others. Maybe you're meeting others in meditation and sitting with them. You're going to go on some retreats. It's fantastic. And then this permeates throughout our whole life. We sleep better at night. We decide what we're really going to put into our body to nourish us. We don't need kind of other substances to start to feel very joyful and blissful. We don't need, some kind of chemicals or some alcohol because we see our own mind is so pure and effervescent naturally. We would never want to destroy that. Clean, clear happiness, effervescence, like a beautiful clear lake in the morning, where nothing's moving and you can look through the water right down to the bottom. This is really the nature of the mind's real true essence. But we don't have an easy time accessing that because of the pace of life, because of our own habits. We like some, we don't like others, we ignore the rest. That's being very discriminatory. Maybe we don't like somebody's politics. We know someone else doesn't like the religion. Some people even have said to me, "Oh, I don't like to see this robe and this haircut. It's too extreme." Okay, maybe well, maybe happy. I can still hold them with total, genuine equanimity. I really want their happiness. I really don't want to disturb their peace of mind. So I'm going to know that in my heart. It's not about they need to like me, they need to accept me. What do I get out of this? No, not at all. This is called a totally transactional kind of love or relationship. We need to get rid of that. We're going to a new place now on the planet. The place of love and light is a selfless wish because we recognize selflessly all beings are like us, wanting happiness, not wanting suffering. It's true. You really think about it. Even the people that you would label your enemy, they're a human being like you and they don't want to suffer. And we are not Buddha. We are not the gods here to judge people. What they're doing, they're going to have to take their own karma. You can see someone's face. You know what? Somebody's happy is have a nice face. Somebody's miserable, all wrinkles and, not so beautiful, lovely face. So our speech has a lot to do with that. If we're telling lies, if we're blaming, if we're using a harsh speech, criticizing, trying to bully, trying to embarrass, very not beautiful, very not pleasant to see. And eventually, over time, that starts to show up on people's appearances. Is it true or not? You understand? You agree? We know even from our own side, like sometimes we wake up in the morning and we look and we go, oh, who is that? In the mirror. Maybe we had a very hard night of sleep. Maybe we had out party a little bit. And then, oh my goodness, not looking so lovely today. Little hanging over. I know, I was young once, but I tell you, I promise you, since years and years now, decades of not doing like that, it's wonderful to let go of those habits. And more than being honest, of course, I'm always going to be honest, but when I'm with my young monks and nun friends and they've never touched any substances, even when they get, like my teacher's, His Holiness is 90 now, and my other teacher, Khenzo Rinpoche, he's 88, and they look like they're in their 70s. They just look fresh, and their minds are fresh and they smell very pure. They move very quietly, purely, but they're very funny also. They're full of life. It's not like they're really uptight, like, oh, well, people who use those things are bad. No, they love everybody. But because they know from their own experience, the benefit of real happiness is inside of us, naturally part of who we are. We don't really need things to enhance the happiness. That's a wrong view. That's what's in the Four Noble Truths called the wrong view, because people don't have a right view, especially I mean, often in the West, we don't even really know what Buddhism much is, but one of the parts of the first steps on the Eightfold Path to get to the ultimate nirvana is called right view. And that's trying to look carefully of what is our nature, what is our true nature. And the Buddha said, actually, everyone's true nature is Buddha. And also he said, but the Buddha cannot open up your own heart and mind and put the Buddha's awakening and wisdom in. You have to walk the path. Wonderful. Let's walk the path. Buddha's like the teacher, the guide. Like, oh, that way, darling, that's a good way to go. Oh, be careful, you're going on a little detour over there. Come back, go this way. So we have to, of course, we make our own experience, but this is so wonderful because it empowers us. I was just talking to my dear friends, Doreen and Cole, who are both 80, 81. Doreen will be 81 next month, and both 80 close to now we've been practicing. Doreen and I have been practicing for like 20 years together, so we know each other quite well. And I'm 58, so it doesn't really matter what your age is. The younger you start your practice, the better your benefits of your whole life are going to. That's right. Good, Abby knows because we met some years ago when she was still a college student. And look, she since then is graduated. She's gone on the Camino walking. She's gone up to India, taken some Buddhism courses, met His Holiness the Dalai Lama. That's her choice. All she did was meet one. I left India because I felt in 2021 I want to go back to the US. I want to go help the people where I was born because they don't have good guidance right now. And of course, I knew that from my own experience. I had to go find my guidance. And this is why I took this path, not to make anybody say you have to be a Buddhist, but to say your choices matter and your happiness is in your own hands. Truly, it's in our own hands. But we need sometimes to hear some wisdom. We need some guidance. We need hands that can help us find the right way towards the lasting happiness and not just the confusion of trying to figure it out on our own, isn't it? It's wonderful. We still have the Buddha Dharma Sangha. The Buddha is the teacher, or like a doctor. Tonight we're going to do a healing meditation. So we're going to close out. We're kind of finishing up our almost winter finishing. We're about to go into spring. We're going to spring into our transformation by kind of purifying, yes, springing, right, flying. But first, we're going to do some purification. But just think this way, like the Buddha, when he was teaching in India 2,600 years ago, he taught in a very classical way that's called the way of the healer. So I know some of you aren't really practicing Buddhist, so I want to put it in a language that's beneficial for you. The Buddha is like a doctor. And when the Buddha in his society looked around, and he was born very high, he was born as a prince, so he was educated. But all his father wanted him to do was become the king, and he didn't want to do that. He felt he had had a birth to do something else in this world. So he said, no, I'm not really planning on becoming the king. And so the king had heard this at the Buddha's birth when he was a baby, a soothsayer, an old wise kind of what would we call oracle, if you know what a soothsayer means, oracle. Um, you go sometimes, what is the person called? You go to have like some reading done like an astrologer, but it's a little more than that. Someone who can see very clearly without reading the stars or something. So this oracle looked at the baby and started to cry. The oracle was quite old. He had been a meditator up in the mountains and he came down. And Buddha's father, the king, got upset and said, oh, what is wrong? What is wrong? Is something wrong with my child? Because this was his only son. And the oracle, the old man said, no, no, the prophet, we could say a prophet, that's the right word. He said, no, he said, I'm only weeping because he will be such an amazing, amazing being that has never come into this world before. I'm only crying because I won't be alive to see the great being that he's going to become. So of course, when Buddha's father heard that, he's like, well, I don't care about a great being. I want a king. He's going to be a great king. And the prophet said, no, no, he's going to be much more like a universal monarch. He's going to leave something for the whole of humanity, not just your kingdom. So, sometimes when I'm with the high school students or the college students, they say, oh, Tenzin, how come my parents didn't teach me like the breath meditation? Or how come they're telling me to do this, but I maybe want to do that? Your parents are also human beings, like Buddha's father, the king. He was a very highly born human being, but we can only share with each other what we really know. And often we believe what we know is the best for our children, let's say, and that's how our parents try to guide us. But the true parent has to allow the children to find their own way, has to give the best knowledge, Or like a doctor say, like, yes, I can help you. Let me see, you've got some sickness. This is why you have the sickness. This is the cure, and here's the medicine. But it's up to the patient to take the medicine. So the Buddha said no to his father. He escaped when he was 28, and he went and for 6 years he practiced in the jungles and in the by the river bank. Right now in modern day India, near Bodh Gaya, there's a beautiful temple where he sat under the Bodhi tree and awakened. And he did do that, and then his fame spread wide and far, and eventually he went back to his old kingdom. He had promised his wife, he had a wife and a son, because the father thought maybe if he gets married, he'll forget about his ideas about becoming a great spiritual leader. He went back, and his wife said, I knew you would come back because she said, we've had many lifetimes together, and I know you have something important to do. Just don't forget about me and Rahula. That was his son's name. And so when he came back, they also asked him, can we join your community? And so his son became a monk and his wife became a nun, and his stepmother became the first Buddhist nun. At first, the Buddha said no to his wife when the wife asked, I would like to follow you. He said, no, I only have a community of monks right now because we're living in the jungle. It's very tough life, insects, snakes, plus women like walking around by themselves. Monks can wander here and there and beg for food, but she was a woman of the court, so she was a very high, a noble lady. So he was thinking, no, I can't have that. But after some time, all the noble ladies at his court, his wife, his stepmother, all these other very well-to-do ladies, even though he said they couldn't join the Sangha, they all cut their hair themselves and they walked in rags. And then they kept begging his attendant, Ananda, please go and ask Buddha to make us his followers. And finally, on the third request, when Ananda went and asked the Buddha, is it because women cannot attain enlightenment? And Buddha said, no, of course, Ananda, women can attain enlightenment. It has nothing to do with being male or female. Of course, they have a mind, they can attain. And then he said, well, why are you denying them their highest state? And then the Buddha thought about it and he said, okay, um, tell Prajnapati to come in, his mother, we say Maha Prajnapati, to come in now and I'll talk to her. And he said, I'm going to make you, it was actually his stepmother, but she really raised him. His birth mother died 7 days after his birth. He said, I'll make nuns part of the Sangha, but you have to follow like these extra rules because you still have to kind of hold the social order of the day, so to speak, where women obviously were not held as in high esteem as men. But he said, I'm going to give you all the teachings. It's not a question of you not get, I'm going to teach everyone with an open hand. You'll get all the teachings, but when we move together as a community, you have to show a little bit deferring to the males. That's how it was, in their day, and that's still in India. It's quite patriarchal. And it's changing now. It's taken 2,500 years, but it is changing. So that's the good news. But the main points of this that I'm trying to tell you is Buddha was a great teacher and a healer. He had his own struggles where he was rejected by his father. The king never kind of came around. He was happy to see him again, and he could see something really transformed in him. But he never really had much left to do with him after that because he lost his own wife, he lost his lovely daughter-in-law, he lost his grandson. They all went and joined his son's Sangha. But the point was that the Buddha had found something transcendent of this world. And when people were around that, they wanted to go on that trip. They didn't want to stay ordinary drudgery of the material world. They wanted something beyond. And so he left us the Dharma, and he said the Dharma is like the medicine. So I'm like a teacher, the Dharma is the medicine. The teachings tell us, well, what's wrong with us? Well, we suffer. Do you ever suffer sometimes? Have you suffered? Do you want the suffering? Do you say, oh, wonderful, let me suffer some more? What do you want to do when you suffer? You want to stop it as soon as possible. Whether we hit our elbow on something and we have to ice it, whether some dear one passes away and we're crying and we need the comfort of our other dear ones to hold us in our pain, we do. We have suffering. And so the Buddha said there's a reason, though, why you're suffering. It's because you're not really seeing the true nature of the reality. You're not seeing exactly how things are coming into this world, how they're sustaining and how they how they disappear or move on. And so he said that that's deep important to understand. This is what your illness is that you have suffering, but it's not necessary to have suffering. Sometimes pain is coming, that's true. But deep, deep suffering, like existential suffering, it's not necessary. And then if you're free of suffering, there is freedom, total freedom from suffering. So you can be completely healed of that. And the way you do that is then you follow the fourth noble truth, which is this eightfold path. So we have to cleanse ourselves. We have to follow the 8 steps. A lot of it has to do with mindfulness, intention, right view, meaning we start to think about things like even the world looks very static, very still and stable. We have to see. Think right now, I'll put a challenge to all of you. Can you tell me one thing in the material world that never changes?
The sun rises and it sets. That happens over and over and over again.
Yeah, but that's changed, right? Every time. Even the ellipsis that the Earth is going around the sun is changing every time. Yeah, that's okay. Good. I like it. I want everyone to jump in. I think it's great. Let's think about it together. This is like our analytical meditation. Is there anything in the material world that does not change? I
I
mean,
would
even,
say,
yeah.
I would say something like, the mountains don't change, but that's in my lifetime. The mountains I'm looking at don't change, but maybe over thousands of years they'll change, but in my lifetime they don't.
Well, do you ever walk in the mountains, Nancy?
Yes,
Do you think every step you take on a path changes it a little bit?
yes,
It can be very subtle. And do the mountains undergo seasons?
yes.
Are the birds and the animals living there constantly eating berries, constantly leaving poops, constantly making new nests, constantly going here and there?
Mhm.
So is the mountain changing all the time? So it's good. So then we start to think, well, what is this mountain, right? What do we mean by mountain? Is it the form of the mountain? So let's say Katahdin, like even when the big winds come, like it's changing the face, right? The rocks are coming off sometimes, or snow and ice, rain is coming. We don't see the very subtle change, but it's constantly in the nature of change. But good, this is a good
So,
example. So
so
this is
same with all of nature, right? All of nature.
everything in the material world. It's actually a little bit of a trick question because we can't, even on the quantum physics level, if we look at an atom and we break it into quarks and we look at the proton, electron, neutron, then the quarks are even smaller than that. They're still changing. They're like blipping, going somewhere, coming back all the time. Like what they see more and more is there is just space. So now I'm going to ask you, what do you think is the only thing that doesn't change?
The amount of
Change.
in the universe.
Sorry, one at a time. Somebody said
Change.
change is a constant, but change is changing. So something else, but it's good. Change is a constant. What is this whole experience happening? Where is it all happening in? If we talk about earth, water, fire, wind, and space,
Space.
space does not change. But we miss space because we're so preoccupied with what's filling the space.
So
Like let's
how
take
about,
Nancy's mountain. If we see the mountain, right? Katahdin, let's pretend, or whatever, what your favorite mountain that comes to mind. It's so grand and huge that sometimes we focus on the mountain, but when we look up at the sky, it dwarfs the mountain. Or if we're flying up over Katahdin in the airplane and we look down, it looks very tiny because we're in the space. We're in a much bigger space. Go ahead, Nancy. What were you going to say?
well, so what was the question again? What's not
What
changing?
is, yeah, what does not change?
So it's ourselves, our essence, our being.
Well, Buddha's going to get there, that awareness that we can start to perceive. The Buddha nature is like space. But that's a very high practice. But yes, we are going to get there. So in Buddhism, we can talk about the material reality, and the material reality is composed of these five elements. And this is what we're going to meditate on. Earth, and earth has a nature. It has a nature being solid. Water has a nature. Water has a nature being wet. Fire, fire has a nature of being
Hot.
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 Wind, wind has a nature of movement. So our breath is like wind, right? Moving in and out always. Winds are moving. And then the next one is space. And space doesn't have any discernible characteristics except that it's unchangeable. So everything's happening in space. We're all being born in the space. Bombs can fly off through the space. Planets and solar systems can arise and dissolve in the space, but space itself is not changed. Space is like where it's all happening. You with me? So that's called more like when we start to see that, we're using our mind. We're starting to see beyond the material, and we're examining now with our mind the material reality and the non-material. So space, like the mind, is the nature of non-material reality. And this is why it's very hard because there's nothing, we cannot really grasp to anything. It's beyond conceptuality. We can kind of say space, but can you describe space?
It's the final frontier.
Thank you, Captain Kirk. Yeah, it's the final frontier. The mind is really the final frontier, right? So we know about all these things because we have a mind. So we're able to observe because we have awareness. And because the mind itself is in the nature of space, it's non-physical, it's luminous, it's kind of unbreakable. Like no matter what happens to us, we're still alive. We still have awareness. And the mind is very clear, very able to recognize what's going on. Even if we're in a lot of pain, the mind is still active. Even when we sleep, the mind is still busy. Where is that happening but in the mind? So what we want to do is start to think more carefully like, wow, how could I expand my awareness, that mind, beyond the concepts and connect more with the Buddha nature, which is like space itself?
I had an interesting experience this weekend, Katie here.
Thank you, Kate.
Talking about space, I did something not like my usual stuff, and I went to this virtual reality. It's like the largest virtual reality space experience. So you go into space, and it was like there's astronauts, and you're on the space station, and the astronauts were talking about how they go there, they say goodbye to everyone. They have no physical possessions, and they just kind of go into space on pray that they, make it there for one, and they just everything's on faith. And still do this experience like you are literally just standing in the middle of space. And I think it's the only time that like my brain has ever just stopped. And I was just in space. And you could just feel it was like nothing but everything at the same time. It was like miraculous, but it was like you had no possessions, no nothing. It was just you in the moment, and it was just pretty magical. And it was just, I don't know, you just never can imagine because it was like this experience that you were just on the space station looking at the planet, and it was like super cool. But it was a moment of like complete peace and just at awe. And so that's kind of made me think of the whole space thing. So it was a real neat experience.
Oh,
It's called
beautiful.
It's called the Infinite if it ever comes to you guys. It's really neat.
Infinite. Okay, thank you for sharing. Yeah, and when you meditate for a long time, that's what a really great meditation feels like. You really get to that place, and the more you meditate, the more your whole day-to-day experience starts to feel like that.
Well, it's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, it was
So,
great that you did. So did you have to put something over your eyes for like a virtual reality, or were you in a room or?
yeah, it's the world's largest free roaming virtual reality experience. So you put on these goggles and you're literally walking in space. So you can actually see the planet rotating and you're just free floating out in the middle of space like an astronaut. It's like the coolest experience I've ever had in my entire life. And all of like the avatars that are people were like these beautiful glowing aliens. I was like, it was like I was like, I just paid $40 to make myself feel so in like small and like worthless, just because it was like it was felt so much bigger than us. It was just, I don't know, it was really magical. But like you could walk on the space station and you could just float out in the middle of nowhere. And they actually had like where you could sit on the space station when they were doing like repairing the ship, and you just sat there and like the sun's coming up, and it was just spectacular. Like it was just the most magical thing ever, just to be able to
Yeah,
witness that in that kind of real, like what they're actually witnessing. It was beautiful, kind of, it was awe-inspiring.
I can hear that in your voice. I'm glad for you that you had that, because a moment like that, a glimpse moment, that could happen through that virtual reality. It could happen in nature. It can happen in meditation. If we call that a glimpse. And Katie said something important. She said, I felt like nothing and so tiny and insignificant, but yet I felt like she was part of everything. And this is what the Buddha is trying to get us to, is the selflessness is truly that. It's not that we don't exist at all. It's not nihilism, that we are here, but it's the question of how are we here? How do we exist? And it's this oneness, this beyond conceptuality, this oneness that is just all expansive, much more beyond the little I, the little me, more than what we could ever explain. But the awareness of that and then the embodiment of that, and this is what we want to do in our practice, is transform to be able to open up to having more of those glimpse awarenesses. So now Katie H just shared that that's what she had. So before that experience, she never had that train of thought. She never had that neural network pathway. Now she has it. She can revisit it. Like last week when we revisited the moment of joy that we could recall from our childhood, that will be a very impactful, impressionable moment that's in part of her awareness now, that she can go back to and say, yeah, actually, it doesn't matter if I'm really nothing, if I really have nothing with me. I'm just floating around in the space because it feels awesome. And I feel okay with that. I feel connected to the beauty and the wonder of it. That's where Buddha's trying to make us wake up. Who are we really? Much more than who we take ourselves to be. Much, much more. Unimaginable. And I think everybody has had that moment that Katie described. You've had a moment of awe and wonder that's just made you move to another level, another view that you never had, and made you stop and pause and start to feel so wide awake inside. This is what we need to continually cultivate, because these states of mind, they're possible not just in AI or what is called virtual reality. It's AI, and I call AI authentic reality. I'm going to write a little book about that. Authentic reality. We don't need the artificial reality. We don't need the VR, the virtual reality. It can help a little bit, but we need to know just from the power of who we are. This is the experience Buddha came into, just using his own insight, his own mind, to tap into the nature of mind. You can see these things without needing to go on the spaceship. Katie just proved that, because she could be there and have that experience without having to go up into the machine, into space. But you can have them also without needing to go into an exhibit to have them. They're possible through the meditation. Of course, having a an experience in nature or in dancing. Sometimes we get into a flow in our dance or flow in our exercise. The flow, yeah, you go beyond yourself. You're just transcending. You're one with it all. You're that. You don't need to have the label. You don't care if you don't own anything. It's just all inconsequential. You're flying. Yeah, there are many ways to fly. But what we want to recognize is inwardly. That's what our mind is able to do, to just move beyond the limitations. We often have very small self-perceptions, the little me, the little I. But the reason a lot of people don't like to think about impermanence is because we often think of not being in control. Things will change. Like a lot of people, I know a professor at a boating college who really would not have liked that experience Katie just shared. Once I did a guided meditation about going to the moon and rising up above Bowdoin and looking down and like from an airplane and then going higher and higher. And afterwards she said, "Oh, I can't believe I made that whole meditation because I have a huge fear of flying. And I often have a panic attack when I even think about it." She said, "But what the meditation did for me was make me feel safe. So I could do it in my mind and let myself go through the steps and remind myself that I was okay." And then she told me later it's helped with her fear of the flying. So if we plan for things, if we use our mind to explore the reality, instead of change feeling scary or anxiety producing or out of our control, we could flip it and we could say, actually, change is an invitation for growth. It's an opportunity. Even when things feel difficult, it's an opportunity to grow. Maybe we don't always need to feel a panic or an anxiety. We could say, what would be the antidote to the panic and anxiety would be just to meet the experience and be curious. Oh, that's what that sensation feels like. Oh, I'm going to push my boundary by leaning into those places of discomfort instead of trying to pull away from them. Because when we pull away, that's when we create suffering. And this is what the Buddha said to us: recognize your true nature, like your body's in the nature of change. It's constantly been changing since we were born into this world. Material, physical flesh, atoms, whatever, all the bits and pieces are, they're constantly changing. We know that. Women know it so well because every month we've been changing. Our body has to change and do its thing. So we constantly have to know that. But, men have that too. They're shaving or whatever. We have to deal all the time with the body. We celebrate our birthday. We love to celebrate birthdays. That's a celebration of change. I hope everybody will celebrate every day as their birthday, their new day. But every year we might use that as a marking point of like, oh, that was my, let's say 28th year. Or for me, this was my 58th year. And now, oh, that's so interesting. Wow, I'm really thinking I'm on the doorstep of 60. How often I think a long time ago, I thought 60 is quite old. I didn't think I'll make it to 60 when I'm even 19. Maybe the nuclear war is going to break out. Who knows, So we have an idea that the change is coming on the material, physical level, but on the awareness level, if we do a meditation, we can, and we're about to do this meditation to balance the elements in the body. The awareness, we can start to think, that's been my good friend all along. Like that, there's been change in our intellect. We've learned new languages, new facts, new jobs, new travels, whatever places. But the one that's watching, the one that's aware, she's or he or that one I hope has been our good friend throughout this whole life's journey. That one with KDH that just enjoyed so much having that wonderful space trip. It's the same one that's met challenges and difficulties and struggles. It's the same one who does kind things for others or just takes care of her good little canine friend. That's the same one. No matter what we're doing, that awareness is what we carry with us. And that awareness in Buddhism is what continues moment by moment by moment. And that's why we want to have moments be as positive, as present, as constructive to our own happiness, compassion when we know that we have pain, joy when we can celebrate. Like when Katie H just shared her experience, my whole being could feel her joy. I could rejoice for her, could feel her happiness. And then my heart just felt wonderful. I'm so happy she had that great experience. And her joy was being shared with us. So we can feel our awareness is definitely connected to our own experience. But it's not necessarily in the sense of our physical being, who we are. Of course, this has a part to do with our awareness, how the appearance we're taking. In Buddhism, we say, okay, to have a human life and be connected with the Dharma, with the Buddhist teachings, is very precious human life. Having some practice of interest, of growth is very, very precious these days because, you know, look at the world. If everyone were doing this, we'd be on a different, and we'd all be up in the space with you, Katie. We'd all be like, wow, what a beautiful planet. Look at this place we're calling home. It's amazing. So this is what we use our practice for. But it's so lucky and lovely that we have spiritual teachers. So the Buddha became a mendicant when he was 28, and then he lived the rest of his life until about 80, teaching and practicing and meditating. And it's so lucky that from my side that I'm with my teachers who have been doing this their whole lifetimes. And it's so lucky that we have other friends who we can practice with, other community that we feel supported by, that we want to join with, that we want to continue to develop these qualities so that we can heal. You know, we have to heal ourselves before we can have world peace. We have to have inner peace before we have true lasting happiness all around us. When our mind becomes like that, then that happiness will always be there, that deep contentment. When we really want joy, we have to continue to cultivate the wish for others to have it more than we wish it for ourselves, because if we're wishing it for everything and everybody else, we're only one. But if we're radiating that wish out, then the joy comes back. So our own joy is included. And that's why we have to always hold our experience in equanimity, trying to remember even when people do very harmful things that they're under the power of their own negative emotions. It's not an excuse. There's never an excuse for harm, for killing, for violence, for abuse, not at all. You have to move away from that. But when those things come up, what we have to say is like, oh, instead of he or she is so bad or that one's so bad, say, oh, they have some very bad habits I should be careful of. But don't make it about the human being, because that human being has got a Buddha nature also, and is the same as us, wanting happiness, not wanting suffering. But of course, they've developed, mostly when people act very negatively, the first thing we can see is they have a very big ego, very selfish. And the big ego isn't just like pride and feeling number one. Big ego can also be very small and very bullying. Bullies have very big egos from wound. They're just trying to get power by trying to project that over others. So, you know, Om Mani Padme Hum. We have compassion, but we're not going to spend a lot of time like worrying about them because we have better things to do with our precious time, which is developing our beautiful qualities, developing these four immeasurable qualities of love, loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. We're not going to waste our time in worries with the others because we cannot change them. How many can we change, Abby? How many people can we change? This one. But if we change that one well, we'll be very helpful to others. Absolutely. Yes. So let's get ready for some meditation now. We did some listening meditation. That's hearing, called hearing. That's very important. That's where we have to start. But let's go inward now and do some meditation to balance the elements in the body. So sitting up in a nice, or you can lay down if you need to lay down, but you need to be alert. If you can sit up, then please sit up and be comfortable. Straight spine. You can close your eyes for this one because it's guided. And this is called a meditation to balance the elements in the body. From the point of view of complete purity, there are the 5 female wisdom manifestations. So from the point of view of complete purity, there are the 5 female wisdom manifestations. From the point of view of the impure, these appear in the form of the 5 elements. The physical body is naturally based on the elements. The flesh corresponds to the element of earth, the blood to water, the heat to fire, the breath to wind, and the consciousness to space. When the 5 elements in the body are stable, balanced, and settled, one feels happy and healthy. When they fall out of balance, one becomes sick and feels unwell. In order to keep a healthy balance of the 5 elements, and thus to improve the strength of your flesh, blood, heat, breath, and consciousness, visualize your own body in the form of the medicine Buddha. This, if you need to look, is the medicine Buddha right over my shoulder here. So you can imagine yourself in this blue body. This is a very cute little face, little pink lips, little smile. And concentrate on the light in your heart center. A bright white light. First of all, from this light, the expression of the element of fire radiates in the form of red light, pervading the entire outer world. Extracting the essence of the fire element from this environment, the red light increases in radiance and expands. The light enters your body through the heart center. It melts into the white light there, suffusing it completely with the energy of the fire element, which then burns all indispositions and sickly tendencies of the body, thus restoring it to the well-balanced state of good health. Thereafter, the expression of the earth, the element of earth, radiates in the form of yellow golden light from the light at the heart center. This golden yellow light totally pervades the world, encompassing all that is of the nature of earth, such as hills, mountains, and islands. Having extracted the energy of the earth element from all worldly phenomena, the brilliantly energized light melts back into the body, mainly into the flesh, through this seed heart light of white light. Thus, the whole body is vibrating from the union of the energy of all external and internal earth elements. Now, white light radiates from the light at the heart center and touches all that is of the nature of the water element, such as springs, rivers, and oceans. Their essence is extracted and absorbed into the white light from all around the world. Their essence is extracted and absorbed into the white light, which now becomes extremely lustrous and irradiated. All of this white light melts into the body, nourishing the blood and causing your complexion to become smooth and healthy. In one's body, the breath is of the nature of the wind element. It accounts for all movement inside the body and moves in its own ways of its own accord. The wind of life force is located in the central channel. When this king-like wind of the life force abides steadily, you will be healthy and life is stable. Should it move incorrectly, however, you would feel uncomfortable, and were it to stop moving, you would die. When the life force is weak, the branch winds will be weak and sickly as well. In order to increase the healthy energy of the winds in the body, visualize green light radiating from the light in your heart center. This green light gathers together the energy of the wind element from all around the planet and becomes irradiated with brilliance and strength. And melts back into your body. It diffuses throughout the whole body and restores the energy of the wind element in all those areas where it is weak. In this way, the entire body becomes vibrantly energized. The fifth element is the element of space. In general, space is empty and provides openness. The element of space corresponds to the internal consciousness, which is naturally empty in essence, just like space. Even so, this emptiness is not a fixed state, but is naturally clear. Should the energy of the space element lose its balance, the mind may become dull, depressed, or simply overtaken by thoughts. When one is depressed and miserable, one suffers and cannot find the energy to do the simplest thing. In order to strengthen the energy of the space element, visualize blue light radiating from the light at the heart center, extracting the essence of the element of space, which is the energy of emptiness, voidness, that provides spacious openness. The light melts into the light at the heart center and likewise into the whole body. Based on the energy of the space element, the whole body and mind become brilliant and energized. This is the way to meditate in order to enhance the energy of the elements in your body. In general, most non-Buddhist religions meditate on the deity as being outside the physical body. In these cases, the deity takes the form of a refuge or of a protector or a messenger. Thus do they meditate, and of course, this is fine. Yet, in the Buddhist tradition, however, the deity is not meditated on as being outside of the physical body. One meditates on the deity as being one's own essence, expressing itself through oneself, arising as the deity. One therefore thinks, I am the deity. And with this conviction, one meditates. Why is it justifiable to meditate in this manner? As previously seen, the 5 afflictions are actually self-expressions of the 5 kinds of primordial awareness. Thus, our own mind is in essence exactly the same as the mind of a Buddha. In the philosophical treatises, this is sometimes referred to as Sugata Garbha, or Buddha nature. Sugata Garbha, or Buddha nature, because all beings possess this innately pure Buddha nature. They are pure by nature and not at all impure. Being pure by nature, it is perfectly justified to meditate that you are the deity, because this is exactly how it is. Thus thinking, I am the medicine Buddha, and allowing the light to radiate from the seed heart bright light in the center, gathering together the energy of the elements and dissolving this energy back into yourself does actually benefit your health. Alternatively, should you wish to benefit others, you can dissolve this highly energized light into them instead of yourself. In this way, one helps them to rebalance their elements. Thus, your practice becomes beneficially effective for yourself and for others. So let's come out of the meditation now, feeling vibrant, feeling clean, cleansed, like taking an inner shower. Feeling that we've just rejuvenated our 5 aggregates, our 5 elements. And then thinking about how wonderful it is that we have this mind that's clear and cognizing, that can actually follow these practices and actually bring benefit to oneself. And by doing that, even if we don't send out the energy, we're definitely still benefiting because of the deep interconnection. Is when we create more purity within our own heart and mind, we're bringing that out, and it's affecting the environments and the beings that we meet. So it's very wonderful. Before we do our dedication, would anybody like to unmute and say anything? Greeting, how did you like the meditation? Was it helpful? Hi, Barry.
Hello, yes, it was super powerful because at the beginning, when you were talking about the colors, I kind of felt this like kind of a dimmer light, but as you kept going through, like it kept growing, and on the very last color, I felt it like radiating from all over me. So just kind of growing, and it just felt very powerful. Thank you for that.
Oh, very good. Thank you for that. Yes, that's a good meditation. Anybody else? Well, I want to say thank you to everybody for being with us. Thank you for all sharing. I'm so happy. If you're coming, it means that you must be gaining some benefits. So I'm most happy about that. Want to say a very special birthday to Katie the Pisces, who's got her, so sounds very young in one way, but 29th birthday coming up. It's funny because you're older than my young friends from Bates, so I've got to shift some things in my own awareness of your age, because to me, you're still bouncing in the backpack sometimes.
I am. She's still in there. Thank you so
Good.
much.
Yeah. So let's dedicate how wonderful if all Mother Sentient beings could benefit from our time together. May they. This precious mind of bodhicitta, the mind that wishes for full enlightenment and awakening for oneself to be only of benefit to others, may it arise where it has not arisen. And where it has arisen, may it never stop, never decline, but only increase forevermore. May His Holiness Lord Chenrezig, the Buddha of compassion, live long and strong up in the Snow Mountain land. May he remain in this world until all suffering is finished. And may we likewise live in his guidance of great compassion, never letting the word of suffering spread around us, but only bringing to ourselves and others the most positive of vibrations and enlightened awakening consciousness. May this happen moment by moment. And if we have moments that we slip, may we have compassion for oneself and humor and just keep going. And may Tashi Getseling continue to get support and be beneficial. Here, right now, my other nun friend who's here from India, she's down in New York. She's doing big prayers because we're still in what's called Losar, the Tibetan New Year. They follow a lunar calendar, so we're in the first month of that calendar, and the first 15 days are called the Days of Miracles. So this is a very powerful time to do these beneficial practices. Merits are multiplied like inconceivably. One of my teachers used to say, even the whole sky couldn't hold all the goodness that we're generating during this special time of the Days of Miracles. So have a miraculous week for yourselves. And this week on Friday is our Medicine Buddha Puja. So come back again and see you Friday if you're available. We'll be here Friday. I think we start that night at 6:30. We'll send out another reminder maybe on Thursday, but Friday from 6:30 to 8 is the full moon, and we'll do the Medicine Buddha practice. And again, another time for purifying, strengthening, raising the vibrations.
So it's in person or in Zoom? Zoom.
It's only in Zoom. Yeah, we don't, unfortunately, right now, we don't have any space to meet in person here, but sometime in the near future, hopefully we will change that. We could talk about that, Eileen, if you want to have some ideas. Okay, but now just for this week, it will be by Zoom. Okay, everybody.
Thank
See you.
you.
Have a beautiful week. Lovely to see you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.